I'm Jason Deere.
I'm Sammy G.
And we are Dice and Dragons. Please take a look at the video description below. There you will see our timestamps as well as some information as to what the video is about. So, stay tuned, it's coming up. Enjoy the show. What up, gamers? Today on Dice and Dragons, we are taking a look at Legends of Andor, currently published by Cosmos Games, created by Michael Manzel. Now, this game has won numerous awards, most notably the 2013 Kennerspiel des Jahres Award in Germany, also known as the Connoisseurs Award. And talking to my compatriot over here, there's a great many reasons why it won this award.
There's a great many reasons why it's also gone through many publishers. The demand for this game is very, very high, and we could see why. But the first time we picked this up to play it, I could not believe how easy it was to get started on this.
Fantastic.
It has a quick start guide in this. We can't mention it enough. It left nothing to interpretation, answered all our questions, introduced us to the various game mechanics. Really, really super.
Now, the whole idea of this game is like you take the game, you open the box, and you can play. No matter how daunting it might seem for newer gamers, despite all the components in there, you just open it up and get going. And I think a lot of games could learn from how this game teaches people how to play it.
Absolutely. And now, if you're looking about what kind of genre this is, it is more into the fantasy realm, but it is an adventure game with some strategic components as well. Some of the objectives that you're going to see is not just about killing the bad guys. There's other more, world-changing objectives that need to be filled. So it's not just about killing the bad guys, although that is a very fun element into the game. So that being said, we're gonna go review this game, and as always, we're gonna grab our buddy, our compatriots, we're gonna grab our drink,
and we're gonna enjoy this fantastic co-op game. So, we're taking it to the table.
Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Land of Andor. In this cooperative board game, players will take on the role of heroes summoned by Prince Thorvald to defend King Brander's castle from the hordes of enemies advancing on the land. Here is just a sample of some of the components that you're going to be using while you play the game, as well as all the components that you actually need to play the first legend. So here are the legends cards. These are going to guide you through the game. You have your event cards here. Now this green one is only used for the first legend. You've got the equipment board, which will explain how equipment works and how you equip them on your heroes. You've got the fate cards, the sea event cards, the gold event cards. Your starting training tokens would teach you all about fog and gold. Your fog tokens, the wells and the star tokens, which will get explained later on. You have your gold, your hero markers, which are used for different aspects of managing your hero, as once again, the enemies. Also, some nice 3D tokens that we're going to be using in the game, such as the tower, the catapult, the enemy scaling ladder. Those come up in later legends. Now, you'll notice that each hero has 2 tokens. One's for male, one's for female. And then as well, you have your hero dice and, of course, your hero. So, get ready. We're about to step in to the Land of Andor and play through the first legend. And this game comes with this fantastic quick start guide that teaches us how to play. So what happens when how to play and play through mash up together? Well, you're about to find out as we journey into the Land of Andor. So, before I pass it back to Sammy G, we're going to take a look at the character boards in Legends of Andor. Now, the starting game comes with 4 characters. You have Cram the Dwarf, Thorn the Warrior, Pasco the Archer, and Eora the Wizard. Now, all of these boards are double-sided, as you can see. So if you would rather play Chada the Archer, you can just flip it over. And each character also has 2 pawns, 1 female, 1 male, and you can play whichever one that you would like. It doesn't actually affect anything about the game. And when you're looking at your character board, you can see there's the name of the character, the rank of the character, which can be important as to where they will start in certain legends, as well as their special ability. For example, Chada, as an archer, starts with the ability to attack an enemy from an adjacent space, whereas Thorn, as the warrior, gets an extra 2 willpower, so he gets 5 willpower instead of 3 when he goes to empty a well. Now you might be wondering what the other elements we have here are. Well, you've got these 2 tokens. So one of them is used to track your willpower, and each character starts at 7 willpower. Your willpower affects the amount of dice that you're able to roll in combat, as well as counts as your health. Now the second token will be placed in the sunrise box to keep track of your character's turns. You have this little square here, which is used to track your strength points. Your starting strength will be determined by the legend that you're playing. And then as you're playing the game, different items, as well as purchasing strength with gold, will affect this. And strength is important because the more strength you have, the more static damage value that you have. This value gets added onto your dice roll, so it is a key point of the game. Here you have your space to keep track of your gold, as so. Your character can carry 3 items maximum, so you could have up to 3 items like this. For more information on the items, just consult the item board. It's got all the details that you need on the items. And then you also have a space for a helmet right here for your character, and then you can also equip them with 1 large item, which varies. You could have the falcon, for example. It could be a shield. It could also be a bow and arrow. So that covers the basics of the characters in Legends of Andor. Now I'm going to toss it back to Sammy G, and we're going to go into how to play the game.
So what we've already done here is we've taken the liberty of setting up the first legend here. So you see all the blue tokens now set up on the board. And really what we did is we used the quick start guide. It's actually super simple to follow, and the instructions are really good. So if you're setting it up, do listen to the instructions, do follow them exactly. And what we're doing here just for the intro play, we're using all 4 characters actually, just to show you a little bit more how the movement works. So what we're going to do right away is jump into it. The first player is the one that has the lowest rank. In this case, it is Cram, the dwarf, and it is denoted by placing the token over here into the sunrise box. So movement is really easy in this game. What we do is we can move as many spaces as we want, given the amount of hours that we have. So each box here designates 1 hour in the game. For the intro play, we have a maximum of 7 hours. So if I want to move around the board, each time I move into a different space, that is equivalent to 1 hour. For the purposes of the intro, we follow A1, A2 the cards, and it actually says that we need to complete 4 tasks. So one of these fog tokens needs to be uncovered. We have 1 person that must buy a strength point from the merchant. We need to have 1 hero empty the well over here, and we need 1 hero to move and end their move on the castle. So what we're going to do is, because Cram goes first, he's going to go and buy the gold. So it's 1 space, 2 space, 3, 4 spaces to the gold, where I will end the movement, and I move up my character token 4 spaces on the board. I now end my move. I collect 2 gold as denoted by the card. And the next player you would think would be the next lowest rank. It has nothing to do with that. It's actually clockwise. So I bring it over to my partner.
So I will be moving to the well and ending my turn there. Now the reason I'm going to the well is because of Thorn's special ability. He gets more willpower. And as we've done a practice run, it was already on 12. So his willpower goes from 7 to 12 as he empties the well.
So the well has been emptied. Because it's still clockwise and we're using 2 characters each, just to demonstrate for you, we would have the wizard who would move next.
So if you can move Yara to the second fog token.
1, 2, 3, which would be 1, 2, 3, and we actually didn't move Thorn's character, which was 1, 2, 3 spaces as well. Perfect. And now that you end the movement on the fog token, you would flip it over to find you get 2 willpower points. And everything again listed right here on the tokens themselves. And the last one to move would then be the archer, where I would move 1, 2, 3 spaces, move my character token 3 spaces, flip the fog token, where it says I get 1 strength point. So the fog has been removed. I move my character board 1 strength token up. Next, it will go Cram again, because remember, In the day, we have 7 hours to utilize everything. So just because I ended my movement does not necessarily mean you end the turn. So what I'll do is I will now move to the merchant, moving my character up 1 more hour. I will now use my 2 gold to buy the strength point, thus satisfying another one of the tasks that we must complete. The merchant now is done. We remove it from the board and we go back to the warrior.
So Thorn will move to the gold. 1, 2,
Move
and
the
I will
character.
pick up the 1 gold.
And the wizard,
We'll then move to the fog token.
flip the tog token where you get 1 gold.
So leave 1 gold. And
Perfect.
And my movement.
And now since there's nothing really left on the board, what I'm going to do as the archer is move 2 more spots, still within my allotted 7 hours, and end my turn on the castle. The first person to actually end their turn, not movement, but their actual turn, would be the first one to take their turn first in the next round. So how do we designate that? We have a nice little rooster here on the sunrise. First player to end their turn would actually put their token into the rooster box. And I don't think anybody else has anything else to do for this. So everyone else would also end their turn and go into the regular sunrise, not the rooster token. So now what do we do here? We finished our first round. It actually says congratulations. We move on to the quick start guide where you're going to see a lovely next setup phase, which we're going to cut here and just follow all the instructions, follow them clockwise. And again, super well written, super well done. We'll meet you back when everything has been set up according to the instructions in the quick start guide.
Welcome back, guys. So as you see, we've actually followed the quick start guide. We've done the rest of the setups. You'll see some certain changes on the board. Most importantly, we've placed the fog tokens here out on the board as so. We got rid of the big blue ones. That's really just for the introduction. We've also added the rest of the well tokens, gray side up. And we've added the star, the objective, or the legend icons as denoted by the star onto the narrator track. The other thing that we have done is we got ready for the enemy board. We'll cover that later. And pretty much we're ready to start the game. So the next step that we would do in this case is to read the quest, which is the start card. So sudden screams echo through the countryside. They're coming. The Gors are moving in the gray of dawn and Rightburg Castle is in danger. And it says for us to place some monsters on certain spaces, which is space number 16, number 22, number 23, and number 24. So that is what it's doing. Now, the enemies always move at night. So the characters move during the day, the enemies move at night, and they move 1 space at a time. It's important to note that the enemies can only occupy 1 space at a time, and we'll show it's actually very clever in the setup how they've done it. So how do the monsters move? We actually do follow all the arrows on the space. So in this case, the Gord moved to space 13. And the one that moves first here is always the one on the lower space. So number 22 is lower than 23, which is lower than 24, etc. That's why 16 moved first. So 22 would move to 19. But 23, the Gore here, would actually also want to move into 19. But because only one enemy can occupy space at a given time, it's actually going to move into number 3 automatically. The last one to move is 24 into 21. The enemies have all now moved. We now get to refresh the well tokens. Important to note here too, if your character actually ends the turn on the well, it does not refresh, but there's no characters there, so everything refreshes. And now it's the end of the turn, so the narrator would move up to 1. Because we ran into one of these little legend tokens, we get to read the next legend, in this case number B. There's 2 parts to this. So it says here, very simply read the card, that we're allowed to each add 1 strength point, which we will do now. We're also allowed to split 4 gold amongst ourselves as we see fit. So just for time purposes, Cram will get 2, and Thorn and Yara will get each 1. Now, our new goal is to make sure that none of these monsters storm the castle. So if they do storm the castle, then it's not necessarily the end of the world, but you'll notice that there's some gold shields here. Should a monster just make it into the castle, we would put it onto the board over here. And because we're 4 players, only 1 is allowed to actually get into the castle with no harm. Should a second one get in, because we're 4 players, we would actually lose the game at that point. If you're 2 players, you actually have a lot more leeway as well. So that's our new goal. We cannot let any of these gores get into the castle, any of the enemies get into the castle. And now it's the character's turn to start the day. Because the archer ended their turn first, she will be the one to take the turn right away, or be the first one to take the turn. So she will move, let's say, 2 spaces and flip the fog token where we'll get 1 gold. Now remember, you always move clockwise, so the next person will actually be Cram. And what he'll do is move 1, 2, 3 spaces, flip this fog token, and also get a gold. Once you actually flip the fog tokens, they're no longer necessary. You actually remove them from the game, so you have pretty much 1 turn on it. The next turn would be for Thorn.
So Thorn will go back to the well to take advantage of a special ability, gaining 5 willpower. So going from 12 to 17 willpower.
So it's actually an important time. Why is willpower important? First of all, the well, if you actually do it as a regular character instead of Thorn, what you would get is 3 will points. Now, willpower is important because it does aid in combat for your own character. So in the 3rd tier, the rung that says 14 to 20 willpower, usually the higher will you have, the more dice you get to roll, the more damage you could possibly do to an enemy. The other thing is, this is your health gauge as well. So if an enemy starts to hit you, well, at that point, you would then lose willpower. So the more willpower, the more health you have, the more health, the better, and you're more of a powerful character. So there's a double benefit to that. Now that Thorn has moved, it would be the wizard.
So the arrow will move 1.
1, 2.
There.
Perfect.
Yes, to 12.
And, what is this? We actually have an event card. So we're going to go into our silver deck. We're going to draw the first card, which says music from the tree song. So each hero who has fewer than 10 willpower points will now get an extra 2. So we will resolve that right away. And the event has been done. So now we've all taken a chance to move. It'll now go back to the archer, who will move 1 space as well. Flip this over, and this one is for a strength. So we get 1 strength. And what Cram will do is move 1, 2, 3 spaces to the merchant, end the turn there, but spend 2 gold at the same time to gain another strength point. It will now go back to Thorn.
So Thorn is going to move 2 and get prepared to engage the gore on his next turn.
That's right. So we move the 2 spaces. It's another important point here that if the wizard wanted to move, let's say, to space 16, you could actually move through enemy spaces. You do not have to engage them. However, if you do end your movement in the space with them, you will have to engage on your next turn that comes around. So it would actually be the wizard's turn now. And she does in fact move to space 16. We flip this over and we gain 3 willpower for this fog token. Perfect. And now it would be the archer turn. So I will probably move into space 13 to get ready on my next turn to actually engage with the enemy. So now Cram, what he'll do is to prevent the characters, we'll also move into, I can't do that because I only have 7 hours. So I'll actually just move 1 space towards the enemies here, thus finishing my turn, finishing my hours. Technically there are overtime hours, but you would lose willpower, so it's not necessarily the best thing to do, and there's no rush. We're in a pretty good position, so I'll end my turn, and therefore Cram will go first on the next round. So I think now we have to go into the combat. So we're going to pause here. We're going to show you a little bit more how the combat works and explain a little bit more of the enemy board, as well as how the combat phase would work.
So we're going to take an in-depth look into combat and some of the enemies you may face during your adventures. So for the enemies, we're going to take a look right here at the bottom, and here we see the various enemies that we have. So we have Gors, we have a Skrull, we have Trolls, we have Wardricks. These are again just some of the enemies that you may encounter. And when we encounter them, what we have to do is very simply match the strength and the dice according to, well, the images that are on the board. So in the case of the Gore, we would move the strength to 2, because that's where the image is. And for the health, we would move it to 4, because again, that's where the image is for the Gore. If we were fighting the Troll, for instance, you would have 12 and would have actually 14 strength. So very, very, very powerful. Now, the other thing we see on the side is black dice and red dice. So which one do we use? So a very easy way to see is look at the base of your characters. So for the Wardrick, black base, black dice. And the other thing that you have to know about the black dice is that the minimum roll that you're going to get is a 6, and it goes all the way to 12. So it hits very, very, very hard, especially at full health at 7. Now, to actually do combat, it's very simple. When you enter the space, what you would do is advance the time track. Very important, the character would roll first, because there are certain combat abilities on other characters that you roll 1 dice at a time. Now, in the case of Thorn, we would roll 3 dice because that's our corresponding health, so we get 3 dice. And we take the highest roll, in this case a 5, and we add our corresponding strength to that, would be a 2, so I have a total roll of 7. At this point, the Gore would have 2 red dice, and it would roll, and in this case, it's a 3 plus this 2 is a 5. So my 7 to the Gore's 5, Gore would take 2 damage. And now we restart the process. This would take another hour, so we would advance the time track. Again, we would roll 3 dice. In this case, I roll a 6, plus my 2 would be an 8. The Gore would roll. And in this case, it would be a 4 to the 2, 6. It takes another 2 damage. I kill it, and I would collect the corresponding reward. In this case, it would be 2 gold, 2 willpower, or a split of either one, so 1 of each. So it's actually my choice. In team combat, you can split the rewards. So if I want to take willpower, my teammate, my buddy wants to take the gold or the willpower, you can take whatever you want. You can give everything to one person or not. Now, how combat can also end is as follows. If the character loses all the health, all the willpower, then you would die, you would lose the combat. And what you're penalized is 1 strength, but you would kind of revive with 3 health or 3 willpower and kind of begin your adventures anew. Another way that this could end the combat is, as we see, the enemy dies, you kill it, and you collect the rewards. If we run out of hours, because every round of the combat we advance the track 1 hour, you might run out of time in the day. You might hit that 7-hour mark and then you have no more time in the day. So in which case the combat just ends. Whatever damage you took, but the enemy will reset. Nothing happens to the enemy. And the other thing that you can do is simply just withdraw from combat. If it's not going well, what I can do is simply, let's say I'm in space 39, I could just withdraw, move the time track 1 more hour and move out of the space, and then combat has ended. Now, in the case of more strong characters like the Skrull, it would have actually 6 strength, so you may not be necessarily strong enough to defeat that, but that's where the team combat comes into play, and then you can add the dices together. So that's really combat in a nutshell. We're going to go right back into the gameplay and see what happens. So now that we've reviewed combat, we're going to pick it up exactly where we left off, where it's Master Thorn's turn, and he's about to engage with the Gore. So we're going to set up the enemy board for the Gore settings with 4 health and with 2 red die. So Thorn will roll the dice. He gets 4. He's going to pick his biggest one, which is all 3, so almost Yahtzee. And we roll a double here. So the Gore here would have 6 compared to the 3, plus the 2 strength that it has. So it would have an 8 to Thor's 5. Master Thorn loses 3 willpower, and we advance the time track again. So character would always roll first. And in this case, the Gore rolls a 5. Thorn also rolls a 5 to 2 strength to 2 strength. It's null, no damage is dealt. So we move the time track up again. Should he want to stay in combat? I think he does.
Yep.
We're going to stay. Go ahead. Doesn't really matter here. Perfect. So he actually rolls a 6 in this case to the gore's 4. +2, +2, it cancels out. So the gore loses 2 health. Perfect. And we're going into almost overtime. One more time.
Yep.
Alrighty. And the roll is a very good one as well. So Thorn rolls a 6, the gore rolls a 4. So in this case, you would also lose 2. The gore has now been defeated. We remove it, and we actually place it very important into space number 80 off the board here. Immediately, the narrator will move up to the next section. But before we read the legend card that happens here, you need to take the reward of either 2 gold, 2 willpower, or a split between the 2.
Thorn will be taking 2 willpower, which I've already applied to the board.
Beautiful. So the willpower has been added. And now because the narrator moves up right away, we're going to read Legend C, which says as follows: the creatures are trying to storm the castle. When a creature enters the castle, it is immediately placed on the gold shield. I already explained that. If 2 or more heroes are standing on a single space with the creature, they can join the fight together. So we're going to show you that very soon. Now, essentially, what we can do here is, if the wizard wants to move into the space, what we can show you is how to enter combat and do a joint combat together, which I don't know if you would like to do.
Yep, let's do that so we can explain fighting together.
Beautiful. So, what I would do is have the wizard move into the space as one. It now goes back to the hunter who wants to now engage into the combat. So, first thing I would do is invite my character in. Now both time tracks move up a space in this case, and we get to now combine the rolls. Now we're going to set the character board up again for the enemy, which is already done here. Now the archer does have a special ability where I get to roll 1 dice at a time. I have 4 dice because I have 10 willpower, so I'm going to do this very fast. A 5, I'm going to leave it there. I don't need to roll my other dice. I'm very happy with my 5. The wizard will roll the 1 dice.
So, because of the wizard's special ability, it means that you can flip the die over to what is on the other side. So if you roll a 1, you can actually make it a 6. If it was a 2, you could then make it into
a 5.
It is a
5. It's a 5.
2 becomes a 5, and so on and so forth.
In the joint combat, it's actually the additional ability where if, let's say I didn't roll very well, that ability can be applied to my die. So now we take the 5, we add the strength point, which to me would be a 9. We have a 6 plus the 2 is 8. Together, combined 17 damage. The gore doesn't stand a chance, but we're going to roll the dice anyways over here. Double 3s adds up to 6 plus the 2 is 8. We blow it out of the water. It dies instantly. And, goes to space 80. Again, narrator will move up right away. But before we do that, we can now split the reward as we have a joint fight together. So we could split the 2 gold, the 1 willpower. It could go to all one person. That's where the co-op comes into play.
Now, what's important to note is that we went immediately into the combat because the archer was already on that space.
That's right.
And the archer will also have recovered, which we neglected to do, the fog token when they originally moved into the space.
That's it. That's where we ended the turn. Now, what's also interesting about the archer is for the joint combat, I could actually do it from an adjacent space. So had I been at just ended my turn on 12, I would still be able to enter the combat. And even though I'm doing it from an adjacent space, if the gore were to deal damage, the archer would still take damage even though it is in an adjacent space, so there's no tactical advantage except that you don't have to be occupying the same space for the combat. So we would just resolve this. It's an additional 2 willpower, so go up to 11. I would take 1 gold for this. What would you like to take?
I will take 1 gold.
1 gold as well, so we split the gold reward. And now we would go into Legend D, and so on and so forth. So here, there's going to be more gores that occupy certain spaces. Look, we're going to ended right here, because then as we move into the legends, you're going to see that there's more and more spoilers. The objective will change eventually as you get up into the board as well. There is an additional objective, but we don't want to spoil it for you guys. So that is generic gameplay for how we do Legends of Andor. Anything to add?
This is very much a story-driven game, so it does have a lot of replayability. However, we don't want to go any further because there will be spoilers. So if you want to find out what's going to happen next, I suggest you pick up the game. Also, stay tuned for our forthcoming videos in this series, as we will take a look at the Legends of Andor expansions, the new heroes, the era of the Star Shield, as well as the second big box expansion as we lead up into the finale to the trilogy, which is supposed to be coming out in the month of December.
Beautiful. So what we're going to do, we're going to cut here. We're going to show you the review, what we think of this game. And yeah, stay tuned. So that was a very fun playthrough. We hope you guys enjoyed. What do you think of the game?
I have to say, I absolutely love the game. I'm a big fan of cooperative games. It is the kind of game that my fiance loves to play, so it's fairly easy to get to the table. And I gotta say, like, I was just completely blown away by the quick start guide, playing the game, the little bit of strategy elements, and also the team play that really comes into effect later on when you're trying to fight the more difficult enemies. Like, I can't recommend this game enough to anyone that likes cooperative fantasy adventure games, especially if you like a little bit of strategy as well.
You don't even have to like fantasy games all that much to really enjoy the game. There is a luck component as well when it comes to the dice rolls, as we saw in the combat. But you know, at the end of the day, the cooperative teamwork is really comes through, especially when you have to fight the bigger enemies. It is crucial because you got your ass handed to you on one of those bigger enemies.
Yes, I did. I was incredibly powerful, and fighting the combat, I pretty much died, so I was quite shocked by how that worked out. The game balance is very interesting, and the strategy really comes in terms of positioning and how you use your heroes together.
And how to time manage yourself. Do I go into overtime hours? Do I not go into the overtime? Do I lose the health? Do I lose that willpower to actually try to take extra movements in a given turn? Sometimes it is very necessary to do that to complete certain objectives, which we don't want to spoil for you. We actually really want you to pick up this game because, again, myself, loved it. Yes, it takes about 60 to 90 minutes, I'd say, per legend or per scenario, but it certainly did not feel that way.
No. The other great thing about the Legends is they form a cohesive, coherent story. So whether you win or lose, or different consequences, and you can go into the following legend based on how you did in that legend. You also have the opportunity to replay the legend if you would like. So I really like that aspect of the game, because it's not just playing a strategy game where you take it out, play the strategy, play the adventure, put it away. It is a narrative game where you're going to be keeping on going through all of the different scenarios and really get a flavor for what's going on in the Land of Andor.
Now, of course, it can't all be positive. We have to nitpick on certain things. And for me, even though the game board is a super good quality, the quick start guide, again, amazing. I find some of like the enemies, it could be more tokens. I know it's certainly add to the cost of the game, but just to have a kind of a double-sided cardboard, it could come off as cheap. Yes, it is thick. Yes, it's printed nice. But as I said, it can't all be positive. We have to nitpick on something. And we find that just having those enemy tokens, it could have been more plastic figurines, especially for the heroes, could have been more of a plastic figurine instead of just a double-sided cardboard.
Yeah, this game, it's definitely a Euro game using European style components. If it did use some of the more like Ameritrash style components as you would get from Imperial Assault or Massive Darkness, that could really add a lot of flavor to the game. As you said, the cardboard components do feel a little bit cheap at times, like the tower keeps coming apart. I do keep all the components pretty much disassembled in the box because they're not able to stay together very well, so that is a bit of a drawback. Also, as he was talking about with the dual-sided character boards, it would have been nice if the characters were maybe a little bit different from the male to female perspective. It's really just like a very slight differentiation in the artwork. You almost cannot tell them apart by the different pawns that you'll be using for the male and female pawns. That being said though, the components don't detract enough from the gameplay itself to really affect the game at all. It's still a fantastic game in my opinion, and one of my favorites in my collection.
That's it. That's actually, it's a nitpicking thing. You can agree, you don't have to agree with us, but you know what, at the end of the day, I still give it a solid 9.5 on 10. Really, really wonderful game, especially if you like, again, that fantasy genre. It's a must-have, and I think it's actually, they're coming out with a couple other versions.
Yeah, they're coming out with a couple other versions. So this is, like we said in the beginning of the video, this is the first of our video series for the Legends of Andor. We will be taking a look at the 2 smaller expansions. Now those may be smaller videos as we get into them, and we will be seeing you for Journey to the North, the sequel, the second part of this board game trilogy, as we journey towards The Last Hope, which will be the finale to this board game trilogy, and it should be coming out hopefully sometime this month. So hopefully you'll be seeing it soon.
And as always, we're Dice and Dragons. You didn't give your score yet.
I did not give my score yet, no. I would give it a 9 out of 10. I would dock it just a little bit more for the components and also the storage factor. It's kind of an empty box, so it's difficult to keep everything organized, especially when you start adding in some of the expansions. But I give it a 9 on 10 merely for the component and organizational factor. Gameplay wise, it's way up there.
And definitely one of our favorite games, as we said time and time again. So now, we're Dice and Dragons, and as always, we're going to grab our drink. We're going to sign off saying, keep gaming.
Keep playing games.
See you next time.
See you next time.
Hey, thanks very much for watching, guys. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe. It won't cost you any gold. It won't cost you any XP. It's perfect.
Also, if there's anything you'd like to see us review next, please let us know in the comments below. And as always, feedback is appreciated. And once again, we are Dice and Dragons. My name is Jason Deere.
I'm Sammy G. Remember, grab a drink, grab your buddy, and keep on playing.
Keep on playing games.
Cheers.